Hi. Just a couple of announcements really quickly. We are having a retreat next Friday, and it will be on birth, aging, sickness, and death. It's called the Pilgrimage of Life, and Venerable Soma will be leading that retreat. So it will take place on Friday, Saturday, and then the following Saturday. And so registration is open. It's Donna based. Feel free to register whenever you'd like. Also, yesterday I got a phone call from Venerable, and she's like, Yeshi, I need your help. I was like, okay, I'm at Lowe's. Okay. So we spent 2.5 hours, I think, at Lowe's shopping for plants. So we have a lot to plant. So if anybody's feeling inspired, please come to the monastery. We have a lot of work to do. So if you'd like to join, that would be awesome. I think tomorrow we'll kind of take a day and do that. We're going to bring Bill. He'll love it. It'll be awesome. So we'll do that. Yeah. So just feel free to contact one of us if the spirit moves you. And then also our album is being officially released tomorrow. Yay. Yeah. We just had a couple of, verbiage logistics to work out. But other than that, it's ready to roll and we're super excited. It's called Invocation and it's got 11 beautiful songs and we're really, really excited to share with you. So we'll send an email out with a link and how you can find that. So yeah, thank you.
Sometimes the things that we say have the most importance to us in life. If we really examine it, it has perhaps the least importance in our life. For instance, if I want to fix a special meal, when I'm fixing an ordinary meal for my family, I just like go in the refrigerator, get something, like cook it, put heat on it, and throw a few spices on it, and I serve it. And generally, that's pretty good. That's pretty good, But if I'm having a special guest, then I'm gonna get the cookbook out, and I'm gonna find a fancy recipe to serve my guests because I want it to be extra delectable. I want it to be a special meal. I have in me something that is aroused that makes me want to offer my finest, my best to them because I care for them so much, or I love them so much. I want to make a good impression. But in our spiritual practice, we don't think it takes all of that. We don't think we need to rely upon a recipe book or training. Man, we'll just throw something together and call that our spiritual practice. We don't think that we need to any training. I'm going to do what feels right for me. We don't think that we need any kind of guidance because, like, we're grown people. We can do, we have our free will. We can do whatever we want. We don't think, and bringing this kind of worldly attitude into our practice causes us to not have the success that's promised, success in the sense of the attainment, the spiritual attainment that's promised. It's like in the Bible, it says like he tells his disciples, take no thought when you are delivered up before the courts of what to say. It'll be given to you in that very hour. But it doesn't come to them given in that very hour by happenstance. There is some development that they have undertaken, some cultivation, some training, some practice, some reflection, some disciplines, so that it is in them in a certain way that when they make that appearance, what needs to come forth can arise. They may get a inkling of it here or inkling of it there, but it's like coming to them or arising in them. It's not like they're making it up or they're planning it out, but they get it's a sound. They get a sound in the ear. And that sound begins to take them some place where that is higher than their ordinary mind, their ordinary consciousness, and they can begin to hear the lullaby or the melodies of heaven, that if we allow that to stream down, it'll succor all of our suffering. And all that's streaming down is the consciousness or the mind stream of the beings who abide in these spaces. And our mind conforms or becomes in resonance. So we start out chaotic, and then after a while we like just get into a resonance like that. And that's it's called the effortless way or the effortless path, simply because it doesn't mean that no effort is being generated, but it's effortless in the sense of it's more like an attunement instead of something that we're like working so hard to do. An attunement that brings us a kind of peace, brings us a kind of fearlessness, brings us a kind of confidence, brings us a kind of clarity or broad vision. And one then begins to know what is useful, what is helpful, what is beneficial. And it brings a kind of accord and a kind of unification of mind. And so this is like the path, the spiritual path that we embark upon. And it starts with something. I could not find my, maybe it's at the monastery, my imparting book, or maybe it's in the car. And Busita brought the car home last night. Okay, I want to take it with me on my on my trip today. But in imparting, there's a passage that says, and and when I saw it, it changed something for me. It wasn't like a drastic change. Sometimes, like if you have like a little blurry vision and you go to the optometrist and he's correcting that vision, it doesn't take a whole big thing. So just a little slight change makes such a difference that you could see. I can see clearly now. Or it reminds you of something that you need to. Maybe you were doing that in the beginning, but I'm not doing that now. Like I've grown past that. And you remember that I need to not grow past it. I need to bring it along with me on the path. I need to keep that. That's a part or aspect of what I'm doing. And if I drop that, then what I'm doing going forward is going to change. It's not going to have the same quality because I have now dismissed something as not being needful. It's not that we outgrow practices, it's that we assimilate them into our being and it becomes a part of us. It's not that it's lost or it's negated or it's tossed out or thrown away. It's just that it becomes so much a part of us that we don't have to like focus on it, but it's still there. And so sometimes we make the mistake of throwing out things saying, oh, I've gone way past that. And we miss just the minute significance of that, of holding to it, of maintaining it. And so this passage in the imparting the absolute truth through the Heart Sutra, written by Buddha Master, says everyone has an original nature. Original appearance or original nature means that there is some aspect of us that's more than what has been imputed on us by our obscurations or by our habitual tendencies or by the voices of the world. Everyone has an original nature. It does not need to be adjusted or practiced. Somebody said, ha, I knew it. I didn't have to do anything. I don't know what y'all doing, but I ain't got to do nothing. The Buddha Master said it. It does not have to be adjusted or practiced. And that's true. Our adjustments and our practices pertain to our obscurations, our blind spots, what we have not realized. Just because we agree everyone has an original appearance and it is stainless and pure, that doesn't mean that we operate in that, right? But it's just letting you know, just so that you know. It's not like you are trying to attain something because that's there. You're more like trying to shovel away the crap all around it so that you can see your original nature. So many things have taken precedence over that. All of the vicissitudes of life, our preferences and our views, like I don't do this and I don't do that. I don't touch this and I don't touch that. Who gives a crap? It is not so much those things. Those are the things that impute upon us a sense of religiosity or superiority or a sense of a pride of life that really in the whole scheme of things doesn't mean that much. They just mean a lot to us. And so we have to break down these kinds of partial wisdoms and partial understanding to get to the whole, to get back to the original nature. And then our life is not based on having to meet so many outer qualifications. In the end, we all die. And so some of the things that we think are so important, while they may have some importance and have some beneficial, we neglect the real thing, going after the false. So it says everyone has an original nature. It does not need to be adjusted, and it does not need to be practiced. So how do we get to it? He said there's the long path and there's the short path, or the quick path. We know I have a non-stop flight for the first time in I don't know how many years, going to Denver today, right after Dharma. And I'm just so happy about it because airports are, although the flight is quick, all of the other stuff that goes with getting on a plane just like cancel out almost the quickness of the flight. Of course, now if I was comparing it to driving, I might have a different view because the drive would be so long. We this past weekend, Soma and I were in Charlotte, and it's Charlottesville, Virginia, and it's a 6-hour drive. I mean, to even try to take a flight would take more than 6 hours to go somewhere to get the flight to get to Charlotte. So we just decided to drive. But a 6-hour drive is a long drive, and then have to teach a weekend retreat and then drive 6 hours back. And I'm thinking, I don't know how many more of those trips I'd be inclined to take. Yeah. So a lot of times what we think is a quicker way is actually more wear and tear on you. And it makes us realize that everything that we think and that we say and that we do, there's some way that we can look and rationalize it that makes sense to us in our ordinary thinking mind. But what is it that we actually have our refuge in? Is it in that ordinary critical thinking mind or not? And so the purpose of the teacher, now I'm not speaking of myself. I am a student of a teacher who's excellent, consummate entertainment. I mean, you have different levels of teachers, like I'm on the low end, that's all I'm saying. But we have a teacher, or in the East, they call him like your master. I love it because I understand the purpose of a master. The only purpose of a master is to remind you that you are also a master. The difference is the master knows that he is one or she is one, and the disciple doesn't yet know. That's the only difference. The master has uncovered their original nature. I won't say recovered it because it was never lost, it's always there, but uncovered it. I won't say discovered it, uncovered it. Just keep that word in mind. So he says, your original nature does not need to be adjusted or practiced. Your master simply leads you to it, leads you to it, leads you to it. One, by encouraging, letting you know that it's already there, then leads you in the disciplines that'll help you neutralize the thoughts and the behaviors that obscure it so that it is not apparent to you. And he says, and when he does that, then you can see it. And it shines forth in all of its glory, in all of its beauty. And so that's why I don't run all over the place. Because what I'm looking for is right here. I don't run all over the place, taking a lot of studies, doing a lot of practices. Perfect something is my advice to you. We talk about the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha, but they have a single essence. So that means that's 84,000 Dharma gates. You can run in any one of them and be safe. You don't have to, like, I'm on time schedule. Door number 2, door number 3, door number 4, door number 5, door number 6. You don't have to run all over the place, examining and grasping at everything. What you get is a lot of head knowledge. You can talk it out. You can talk it out till the cows come home, but you can't live out any of it. So he says there is a 1 or 2 or 3 gates, and sometimes one gate is sufficient to give you a full belly. Don't try to cram anything else in it. It makes you sick. You end up regurgitating and throwing it all up. So just take as much as you can digest and stay with that until you're contented. When you're contented, that will create the condition for you to want to take more. If you try to take more before you're ready, there will be a blowback, a pushback, a rejection. But when the appetite for it is good, then you will naturally want a second helping. And you see how individual this is? It's not, Dharma practice is observing yourself, observing your own problems. And there's the problems that exist just on a living level, and these are specific problems or conditions that have arisen due to certain causes, and those are like our individual problems, that we have to solve, which might require, as much as I hold fast to some view I have, relying on faith to work it out, we start realizing, no, I have to solve my own problems. Otherwise, I will just stay in an infantile, needy kind of existence, because I've not matured. I may feel safe in that space, but I'm not much good to myself or anybody else, even though I might know lots of things. I don't have the capacity to move forward in it because I have not undertaken. I have not either read the manual or I read it, but I have my own flavor that I like to do with it. Before I've even learned the principles, sometimes, like what I've learned about cooking, I'm not a foodie at all. Well, I like the taste of good food, but I mean, in terms of fixing it, it just doesn't make sense to me to spend an hour and a half, or 2 hours fixing something that people eat in 15 minutes. It just doesn't make sense to me, for me to do it. So I'm not that particular about the food. I eat food. I like good food, but I won't go far out of my way to get it. Something that nourishes the body, that's good enough for me. So don't really have a lot of preferences other than to say I like food. But some people, if you if you're going to have a meal, there's a whole way that it has to be laid out and prepared for it to be palatable to them. There's a whole way that you have to present it, like china plates. I don't like china plates. Silverware. I like paper plates. I like plastic forks. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Don't send me any letters about plastic. I understand. I'll work on that. But the what do you call it? The silver. It bothers my mouth. It makes my teeth zing. So I don't like china. Eating on china. I don't like paper plates. I don't like glasses. No. But some people, they have these, somebody gave us a dish set. We went and had it. It was an offering. We went to had it appraised, and it was a $5,000 dish set, and it was missing one cup. And we were trying to find the one cup somewhere, and then we were going to sell it. We never did find the one cup. And I don't even know what happened to the set. Sister Claire Grace was there, and Sister Grace believed in only what is necessary stays. So a lot of things disappeared when she was managing things, because if we didn't need it within a month, it wasn't going to be there anymore. I'm always like, what happened to, because I put things in the closet for there'll come a time we might need it. And I can never find anything, because Clear Grace was like, I don't know what happened to it. Yeah. So Dharma practice is about observing yourself. And I'm always observing myself, like, where am I fastening or tightening around some view and holding it, and so that it's becoming a mind, M-I-N-E kind of view, not M-I-N-D, M-I-N-E kind of view. Where am I attaching to some, and then I recognize that I should be able to see my reflection in the Dharma. It's the Dharma's like a mirror. It shows me me. When I'm reading the Dharma, I'm thinking it's showing me you. But when I read the Dharma, it's actually showing me me. So everything you hear from up here, I take for myself first, showing me me. Mhm. So it introduces for me a problem. You know, Pannavati, what your difficulty is blah, 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 blah. Showing me me. I'm like, oh, well, I'm not really? I'm not sure. Are you sure that we're not talking about Soma right here? It's showing me me. Oh no, that must mm-mm. That's Joe. That's Kadara. That's and I'm going to be able to help them with this. But actually, it's a mirror showing me me. It could be to a great extent. It could be to a minuscule extent. But there is no condition in the human psyche that we don't have because our original nature has been obscured. So it's our job now to look into this mirror of the Dharma, look at ourselves and see what we are doing, what we are thinking, you know, what we are saying. And we find lots of ways to say something that makes it appear that we are being helpful when we're actually being judgmental. So this loving kindness being the first Brahma Vihara state, we say Brahma Vihara state. And what does Brahma Vihara imply? For you, that's a question. Heavenly abode. That's what it means, right? Heavenly abode. So here's the problem with that translation, heavenly abode. If there is a differentiation regarding the three karmas of thought, speech, and action, right? And one is generating loving kindness. Then it means that there's already a deficiency there. So that's not like a heavenly abode. It's actually worldly mind. And so when we think that we're generating loving kindness, we should be able to recognize that if I have to generate loving kindness, there is a deficiency there. I mean, to even be able to recognize the need. And so when people go around proudly talking about abiding in the Brahma Viharas, if you need loving kindness, you need compassion, altruistic joy, or equanimity, you have not entered the abode. You're not really there. He says, this mind state does not have to be adjusted, nor does it have to be practiced. So we're just, when we're practicing in this way, we know we're not in it, in other words. all of this talk about practice. I practice this, I practice that. This is my practice. This is the, no. The master tries to take us beyond the necessity for practice to actually see, to actually know our own intrinsic nature. So that makes the teacher indispensable. I mean, and we're just going to start right there. That makes the teacher indispensable. So for us, a lot, it is to reflect on whether we think we need a teacher, whether we can find the way ourselves. We don't even try on our own to get across town. That's why everybody's got a GPS on their phone. You know, we just plug in and follow the directions on an ordinary thing like just how to get across town. But when we get to the most important thing, we don't think we need anybody. Now, this is a serious talk today because I want you to understand the principles of Dharma. Maybe in some other methods you don't need anything. I tell you, that's how I was for a space of my development as a Christian. When I was in the evangelical church, everything was written there for me, and I would just assent to what was written. And if I knew what was written, then I'm in the company of those who know. Later, I was Pentecostal, and I could like just go by feeling. I could just feel the spirit, and I was just like, oh, it was like fire shut up in my bones. And that was a real experience, but it was like just wildfire, just burning everywhere, you know. And I could touch it, and it was something real there, and it was something powerful there, but I couldn't hold it. You say the wrong thing to me, right in between two holy sinners, my head would turn around like that on you in a second. You know? So I could be extremely in the flow of the spirit, but in the next second, take your head off. Couldn't hold it, couldn't sustain it. That's more dangerous than just having the book knowledge. That's even worse. But now when I get to the Dharma, getting refined, you know, getting scholarly. But yet, there is something else that's required, and that's being in the flow and the stream of the teacher. If you don't think you have a good teacher, keep searching until you find one. If you think you found one, follow his instructions. And it says, then put him to the test. Put his teachings to the test. See if they work. He didn't say think about them and decide. He said, put them to the test and see if they work. And that might mean trying something that right now just doesn't jive with how you flow. But if you have learned something from him or her, when I say, I'm not doing him or her, I'm just saying him, y'all know what I mean. Okay. If you have tried something and it has worked, then you gain a little bit of confidence that maybe this teacher knows something that is worth me taking up. And you take it up. So now you're trying two things. And if that works for you, then you take up something else and you try three things. And then you take up something else. And each time you take up something else, it becomes easier for you to take it up, to settle in it, to be willing to try it, because the previous things have worked. They work for you. And that's how confidence in the teaching is developed. Now, every once in a while, I run up against something that Buddha Master teaches, like, I don't know about that one, because my experience has taught me blah, 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 blah. Like, that one might be for you. I'm not sure that one's for me. And then 2 years later, that one is for me. So it's not always at this time. But here's one thing I do have. I have respect for it, whether I understand it or not, whether I take it up or not. And that leaves the space for in the future, if I come up against that circumstance and I've used everything I know and nothing has worked, then I can go back and pick up that thing I thought wasn't for me. And maybe now's the time that I can try that. So it's your job to take the mirror of the teacher and the mirror of the Dharma and look at it and look at yourself and see what you are doing. And it's a full-time job. Actually, you won't even have to, and I don't mean in a critical, negative kind of way. I mean in an observation kind of way. It's different than in a critical, negative kind of way. Just observing, just looking. And as you're aligning just to that stream of wisdom coming down, that bit of brightness, it might just shine the light on something. You say, oh, I see what I could do. I see how I should look at this. I see how I can hold this. I see that this arose because of that, and when that ceases, the energy will be gone out of this, and that will no longer be there. I see that at one time this was useful for me, and now it's not. So my suffering is going to come from trying to hold on to it, instead of finding a new way to be with something. But no one can make this change except you yourself. And as we walk out, not walk out, walk out of our own problems, we create a new life for ourselves. If you can't change by yourself, then the only alternative is to have the aspiration that I might be able to change. You know how sometimes you can see you need to make a change, but like you just can't make it right now. That's a real thing. Then one can just hold the aspiration, I can't right now, but in the future, I will be able to. That's all you have to do. You don't have to berate yourself. You don't have to literally break your neck struggling to get out of that. You can just simply hold the aspiration. I can't do any better than I'm doing right now, but I think I can change. And then you don't just wait for the change to come. not in the ways that we think of waiting, like sit back waiting for something to happen, but the active sense of waiting, like when you go to a fine restaurant and the waiter is assigned to your table. He has the white cloth over his arm. He stands there, not so close that you feel like he can hear your conversation, your private conversation, not so far away that he can't observe, like when your glass needs to be topped off. No, but he stands in the right amount of distance that he can be attentive yet not intrusive. Do you deal with yourself in that way? Are you attentive yet not intrusive? We want to be that way with others. But if we don't know, you know, if we haven't tried that on for size, as much as we want to be that way for others, no way to be. We don't even know what it is. We don't even have a direct experience. So first, learn to be attentive with yourself, but not intrusive. And when you see how that allows you to develop yourself in a way with ease and with self-compassion, a kind of joy arises on the path, like, hey, this path not too hard. Yeah, I can do this. And the path becomes a joy. It becomes a joy, but you make so much progress because you're able to continually look at yourself and solve your own problems. And, there's a fearlessness that begins to arise, that there is nothing that comes in the course of the day that I can't handle. And I can look at when something does come up in the course of a day that's overwhelming to me. And I can clearly look and see what is the cause. What is my error of omission? What's my error of commission? Sometimes I have to make shifts and changes that I really don't want to make. But to neutralize that kind of effect, it means the cause has to be different. That's producing that kind of effect. Can't say I'm not going to change, or we'll just continue to get what we've always had, and is that enough? So sometimes we have to make a fundamental shift. Sometimes we have to deconstruct and rebuild. And what lets us know is by looking at the effects that manifest in our lives. And when they're not pleasant, we can know that there was some cause. What is it? We don't have to be afraid to ask the question, what is it? And be open to receiving the answer. Now, how do we open to receive the answer? That's what these practices are designed to do. They're not like magic or spells or, like rites and rituals, just something that we do out here and expect something's going to happen. No, they are designed to stir up and bring clarity in the inward parts. So we should understand why we do them so that that understanding can yield results. So I was not given the opportunity to understand how to make a pure offering of spiritual practice, Dharma. I was in China. I'm there with my Taoist master, and he says, Buddhism is for you. I'm like, Now I looked at that, not interested in that. I like Taoism. I like Taoism because I liked how Panyadipa thought and lived his life. And I wanted to be a person like that. And I asked him what he was studying. When I met him, I was a Reiki master and he was a Chinese medicine practitioner. And he was good at his Chinese medicine, and I was good at my Reiki. But the rest of me was a mess, you know. I was the kind of person that if I went into a draft, I will definitely catch a cold. So if you catch a cold, easily stay out of the draft. That would be Panyadipa's solution to that problem. Mine would be, well, if I bundle up more, I can be able to handle the draft. He said, you could, but why would you want to? Just stay out. That's simple. So I wanted to have that kind of mind that could rationalize not getting into things and having to figure out how to get myself out, how just not to get into stuff, you know. And he had a fundamental way of thinking that kept him from biting off more than he can chew, you know, from dealing with unpleasant people and then pretending to love them and feeling guilty because you sometimes really don't. He said, just leave them alone. So if you can't stand the heat, stay out the kitchen. That's it. No, like, no, it's my job to go into the kitchen, you know, and to rescue them. He said, okay, then let me know how that works. That's it. You know, so his life was always like, just like ticking right along, you know, but mine was always running into the fire to save someone, and I'm burned and I'm bruised, you know. And so I started studying Taoism, really getting intent in the practices. It didn't really work that well for me because of the personality type that I am. So when I got to China with our great master, he took one look at me and said, Buddhism is for you. I said, no, I looked at that and not interested in that. He said, no, it's for you. And then he took me over to a Chinese temple, and they gave me the vows. And he said, and when you get back to America, you go find a Buddhist temple, and you go there. So when I get back, I do that. I find a Buddhist one. And when I join it, I know nothing about nothing. I don't know anything about anything. And they just said, here's a book, just follow along and just go with it and you'll get it. So I get the book and I'm following along and I'm going with it the best I can, you know. But I didn't really have any understanding of it. And I ended up wasting 15 years just because I got taken over and just dropped into the middle of the ocean. And so that's why I'm trying to not do that with you. So you understand what you're doing and why you do it. How, what is its effect upon you? So that when you see that occurring, you can cooperate with it better and you can get the desired results. Don't be like me. I was reading, when we were baking the bread, the gluten-free bread, there's the instructions right there. You know, I skimmed through the instructions because I need to get on with the cooking. I skimmed through the instructions. I pulled together all the ingredients. They're all sitting on the table. This goes in there, this goes in there, this goes in. I dump that in, dump that in, dump that in. But if I had really read and paid attention to the instructions, it tells me not just that these things have to go into the mix, it tells them when they go into the mix. in what order they go into the mix. I just mixed it all together. It tells you what the temperature of the water has to be before you put the yeast in it in order to activate the inert ingredient that makes yeast make things rise. I just dumped the yeast in there. The water was not at 106 degrees, and so it didn't activate. It's things like that. So that's why it's important to make sure you know the stuff. Not just that you get something because I got an empowerment, I have a year in practice, and know nothing about what any of it is. And so I'm trying to take you step by step so it becomes something that you like entreat, that you want, that you will respect, that you will utilize so that its power can be unleashed in you and you benefit. So the first part of that, and if you don't mind, I'm going to finish at 1:30 today because I have a flight to catch. The first part of that is the offering up of our spiritual practice. Mm-hmm. So you say, what delights your teacher the most? It's putting his or her instructions into practice. It's not Dharma. It's not bringing me cookies. It's not, wanting to hang out and have a conversation with me. I mean, like all those things are all right. But it's about receiving an instruction joyfully and then trying to put it into practice. Now, if you're practicing it when you don't need it, that's sort of okay, but that's like an in your mind practice. When you're practicing right at the time that your mind wants to run contrary to it, to the instruction, that's the perfect practice. So when I'm feeling like I love everybody, I just love everybody, I'm going to do my loving kindness practicing because I just love everybody, then we're going through something in our head. But when I feel like you did something to me, or you're going to do something to me, if I feel like I need to protect myself from you, if I feel like I can't trust you, I have to get to know you like for a long time before I think you're a decent person. I just don't have that much confidence in human beings. Then that's when the practice of loving, being kind should be practiced. To neutralize the thoughts that are presently arisen in you. That's the time. When you're angry with someone, that's the time compassion for them needs to be practiced. There are some political figures I have real issues with their thought processes, just how they think and organize and put things together, like what's the solution for the world, and have some power to put into effect some of their ideas. So they can be very dangerous to me. And there's some feelings of anger. I can even say feelings of hatred that kind of rise over some of the things that they say and some of the things that they not only say, but they actually put into motion, set into motion. That's the time that compassion has to be generated. Compassion, and we can arouse compassion for the victims fairly easy. But compassion for the perpetrator becomes very difficult. And that's the force of the love that's generated by compassion, I have to feel is greater than the force generated by their unwholesome views and their unwholesome actions. So it really comes down to my own assessment of the force of the power of love and compassion, because they're pretty strong in their convictions that what they're doing works. How strong am I in my conviction of the power and capacity of goodness? Not that strong. So it's not their fault that the world runs amok. It's that we could do a little bit more in shifting the energy of the world if we were on top of our game. Now, that's not a condemnation. That's just an observation of whose effort and whose energy brings about results, right? And the minute that I'm convinced that they are stronger at that, I've already lost. I've already given up. I've already abandoned. And that's why there's so much sadness in the hearts of spiritual people. They like hopelessness in the hearts of spiritual people. Impotence in the minds of spiritual people. And lack of transformative works in the actions of spiritual people. We get our fix by running to church or the synagogue or the Dharma hall to get our happy fix. And I fault the teachers because the teachers won't tell the truth. So they give you a Band-Aid and a chocolate cookie and a happy dance and tell you just let it all go, and because they want you to keep coming. We were at a church and it was a great service, and several of the people came to me after the service on Sunday, and they said, I just love this church. I come here and get my weekly fix, and I'm so happy. He said, but today, I gave the sermon. He said, but today, something changed for me. He said, I don't know what it is. And I can't stop crying. Like, just stay with it. You'll figure it out. But it was just because I told him the truth. And sometimes it's just such a relief to hear the truth. Treat me like I'm a grown-up. Tell me the truth. You don't have to bring me suckers like lollipops, I don't need a sugar high. Point me in the right direction and I will go there. And so many of them had a kind of awakening Sunday. And when I got up to talk to them, I didn't know what to say. I was speechless because we had just had a sugar overdose. You know, we just I was like high on saccharin. You know, is it saccharin, sucrin? What is it? Saccharin. I was high on saccharin, but it was like empty calories. You know, when I got to speak, I said, I'm usually never at a loss for words. I said, I don't know what to do. I do not know what to say to you. And between where I was sitting to where I am at the podium, I was like, um, okay, I'm calling on all the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, the Dharma protectors, Dakinis, I'm calling on every holy being I can think of. Give me something because I have nothing to say after this sugar high we just went on that I think could be useful. Not in a real living way, you know. So just leave them with their happiness then. Don't destroy people's happiness. Leave them with their happiness. It's all I could think to do. And then I felt the urge of Buddha Master. He said, just scan the group. So I said, would you all give me a minute? And I just scanned. And I scanned. And then I said, okay, I got it. And I gave a talk. Now, it takes me 20 minutes to tell one story. The sermon was supposed to be 20 minutes. So I said, this is going to be a problem for me because I can't do anything in 20 minutes. That was number one. What point could I get off that would be useful in 20 minutes? Couldn't, you know. And I got just still, just like this. And then I talked for the next 20 minutes. I don't know what I said. All I know is that the people are just crying. I still don't know what I said because it wasn't anything, you know? It wasn't anything that I could think of as something. But whatever I said was touching each person in a different way. And after that sermon, the pastor came over to me and said, you said that you were a unity. Well, I was a unity teacher, but I wasn't a unity pastor. He said, you were a unity teacher at one time, right? I said, yeah. He said, what made you leave? I said, this. It just wasn't enough. He said, I understand because I'm a TM practitioner and I've been practicing for 20 years. And but this is the unity thing, and so I do this. Yeah. And he said, what do you think about it? I said, I think that's why your wife retired 3 years ago, because it was no longer worth it to her for this level. For somebody, yes, but not for her. Maybe for you, yes. Yes. You know, so here was a pastor who recognized that he had a problem and that there was more that he wanted to offer, but he felt constrained in how to offer it. So he just went with the flow. And as Panya Deepa would say, how's that working out for you? But you could see that his people were ready. His congregation was ready for something that could help them to mature in their faith and in their understanding of just how the universe operates, just in their understanding of the laws that govern our existence. They were ready for it. And I believe in my heart of hearts that I went there for him, for that pastor. Not for his congregation. He's their teacher. But I went for him. And the only way that we can really reach people, is through the life that we live in front of them. Not in the easy things, but in the difficult things. How we walk our talk. So the first is having the proper respect for your teacher, being willing to just respect them. Understanding their purpose. It's not thinking so much of them as an individual, because we think of them as a person, as an individual. What if we thought of it just simply as, thought of them simply as a tool, as an instrument that's needed? Like when you have to like stir the batter and it tells you maybe take a spatula and scrape the sides of the bowl, you know, instead of like, I'm gonna use a knife for that. I'm gonna use a fork for that. And it says a spatula because the spatula has a way of folding in the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients in such a way that they won't clump, that they can dissolve. You know, it's so hard to just use a spatula. And so just think of the teacher in that way, not the person, but just, and think of the practices not as rites and rituals, but as methods for training your own mind. Get the right understanding. He said, rites and rituals will not save you. But when you understand them as methods for you to use to train your own mind, then rites and rituals will save you because you have understood what they are. And so there are certain rites and rituals, like putting one foot in front of the other, that will guide you along a way, that will open up your understanding. You can see, oh, I am here. And it lets you know where your destination is. I want to go here, then I need to take this road. If I want to go here, I can take this road. Not like you have no choice. It's like you have so many choices. It's just elucidating what your choices are. And how wonderful this is to know that this is not a happy pill. But the happiness will come as a result of undertaking the self-discipline to walk out the methods. That's it. And so for the next 3 months, you know, I want to give everyone a yidam practice, but I want you to understand what it is. Because it is powerful. It's like you can't give a child a book of matches just because they like the red color on the matchstick, you know. Because set themselves ablaze, burn down the whole house. But when they know what a match does, then they know how to use it. I could use it to light some kindling for heat, to generate heat. You know, I could even use it to light a torch that can give light. I can use it to uh, uh, light a stove that allows me to cook. See, so there's a purpose for having a match. And that's how spiritual practice becomes then. Not something to consume on our own lusts, but it becomes, they become useful implements for saving living beings. Sometimes we're asking for things, but we have no intent and knowing of using them to save living beings, rather to consume them upon our own lusts, our own cravings. But they're for particular reasons. They're for particular purposes. That's what they're for. And as we begin to use them, they unleash in us more and more of their of what they are, and it takes less effort from us. It takes, and we become the thing that does, and there's the doing without a doer. And we start to realize that that release, that relief, that de-stressing that we feel, that we experience, had to do more with the weight, W-E-I-G-H-T, the weight of our false, egoistic selves. That's the weight that we feel in life. And so when we're talking about no self, non-self, not self, and we're talking about the suffering of the human mind, it has to do with that weight of a sense of a self that has to be placated and pleased and petted and reinforced and all the time. I have to do it for myself. You have to do it for me. You know, and you start not needing that. And then the fetters that tie us down, the people, the places, the things start to snap, release, break off. And we can be with or we can be without. And yet not be so attached that we find unhappiness in anything. And that is freedom. It's not the only level of freedom, but it's the first level of freedom. And then you find yourself contented. For what reason? There's no reason at all. Just contented. And you start waking up to life. Life is not dead. Life is enriching because you are enriching the soil of life. And it reflects on people. And that light that reflects on them reflects on each other. And before the whole thing is lit up, the whole existence is lit up. We call it marvelous. And what's going on really? Not much. And yet there's this sense of marvelousness. And one is walking out their day, you know, without looking for something to make my day bright, without needing something, to make me like feel like getting going, without, it's just walking through the day with a, I was going to say copacetic, but that's re, too reclining, because there's an activity, a dynamic that's released, that wherever you go, the life that's in you comes forward, useful in that moment, with those people, or in that place, with those things. In other words, you bring life itself with every step you take. And you become like the sun. The sun's not sitting there thinking, ha, ha, I'm shining on Pannavati today. Sun has no awareness that it's shining in anybody at all. It's just doing what it does as a part of its nature, you see? And that's how one stops trying to do so much. And one just starts being. We always talk about I'm going to end now. We're always talking about not doing, just being. But how do you get into that? You have to know. You can't like just not do, just be. You have to know how you step into it. Step by step by step. And so for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to be gone a little bit. For the next 6 weeks, we're going to step into our offering of spiritual practice and what it is, so that you can have a great appreciation for yourself and for every bit of effort that you make, that it can be an effort undertaken with ease. And I won't say without expectation. We say have no expectation. Yeah, I have an expectation. Don't just say what people say because it sounds good. I have an expectation. I'm not doing it for nothing. I'm undertaking this for a reason. I have an expectation. If it proves me wrong, I'll change and I'll try something else. But I do have an expectation that the peace that I'm looking for, that the clarity that I want, that the inner enrichment that I seek, that the joy that I've been told is available, that all of these things can come forth as a result of not practice, but perfect practice. I have to go to Boulder, and I'll be back on Monday. But from where I am, if you all could set me up, I would like to just be I'll come in on the Dharma talk through the computer. Yeah. And I look forward to seeing you all. Any questions? Training the mind, that's where we're going right now. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you, no danger. May you always be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life. The difficulties are not going to all cease. Whether you're rich, whether you're famous, whether you're surrounded by people that love you, you're still going to have the inevitable difficulties of life, because that's what goes in this realm that we're in. But there's a way that we cannot be moved by any of it. Yeah.